You're listening to Short Inspirations from Ralph.
Dig It, Part 1. You know, we are here on this earth at this time in history, in the nation that you're in your families for a divine purpose. And we know that Queen Esther, if you read that, her uncle Mordecai said, "You were born for such a time as this." And Queen Esther saved her people. But the biggest issue, which I've thought about for many years, is that we are not here just for ourselves. There is a bigger picture. And in the Message version of Isaiah 44:3, it says, "For I will pour out water on the thirsty ground and send streams coursing through the parched earth. I will pour out my spirit into your descendants and my blessing on your children." Now, I live in New Zealand and I have 4 great children and 10 wonderful grandchildren. And increasingly, and I guess as I age, I'm aware that I'm not here for me, for Ralph. I'm here for the blessing of the generations to come, so that they too will call upon the name of the Lord. They will acknowledge God in their lifetime. And I want to look at a story in Genesis chapter 26, verse 18. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. So the wells had a name. And notice what he said. Isaac reopened the wells. Other versions it says dug again. You know, there is such a thing as living water. Jesus spoke about it. And this living water is not only an eternal outpouring on your life, but it is also for us to find living water. And if we once found living water, to find it again in our lives, in our homes and families, and for our children and for our children's children. You see, the wells that were supposed to refresh and revive with living water, the Bible says that the enemies, the Philistines, stopped them up, clogged them up, filled them up with dirt or earth. Therefore, there was no way for a new generation of people, that was Isaac and his generation, to get this water. They couldn't get to the wells that his father had dug. And in the Bible, in Bible days, wells were incredibly important. They were hard to dig in those days. They never had drills or heavy mechanized equipment like we do today. They were in a Middle Eastern terrain, extreme weather, usually heat, and it was a matter of life and death to find water. And if you could find a well of water, you actually became a very wealthy person in those days. I guess you could say that a well of water would be like an oil well to us today, hugely in demand. And I love that old TV program, the Beverly Hillbillies, Jed Clampett. Let me tell you a story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer, but he kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground came bubbling crude. Oil, it is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kinfolk said, "Jed, move away from there." Said, "California is the place you ought to be." So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools and movie stars. I think that Abraham must have spent a lot of time and energy and sweat and prayer in digging the original well. But find water he did. But get this, the wells were not only for him and his wife and his people and generation, but Abraham understood that he was also digging a well for Isaac and his generation, and also for his grandson Jacob and his generation. Proverbs 13:22 says there, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous." You know, for over 33 years, We were involved in leading a great church that not only had many ethnicities present amongst the people, but also it was intergenerational. And so it was sort of like a flow, that's the way I could describe it, in terms of people before digging wells, bringing blessing into the church, and the church becoming a church of the generations, stretching way back and stretching forward into tomorrow's children. And if I can bring a plug here, I would say that you don't just need a good church, a gathering of people, but your children do, and your children's children, and your children's children's children. Keep listening. God bless you.